I just stumbled upon this video of Suze Orman being interviewed on MSNBC on the biggest financial mistakes that she sees women make and why she doesn't order coffee. And I thought, oh my God, we got to check this out. And my first thought was, where has she been? Because I read Suze Orman's books like 20 years ago ish. And I haven't seen much from her recently. Like I remember even going and checking out her YouTube channel and there wasn't anything recent on it. But suddenly now looking at her channel, there's only 40 videos on there. Even though the intro video on her channel is 8 years old, all of the other videos, it looks like she just dumped a whole bunch of videos about a month ago and then she started posting. And so I'm like, what's going on with Suze? What's with the sudden reemergent? And I did see that on just Googling, like, what's up with Suze Orman? I did see she had a health scare in 2020, but, recording this in 2025, I'm like, so what's been going on and why is she suddenly showing up more on YouTube? I was also interested to see that she only had 80,000 subscribers. And I'm guessing maybe it's a newer channel or she hasn't been very active on it, where you see other YouTubers with, millions of subscribers in the financial coaching, financial education space, where Suze's really much more of an OG. So I would expect to see her channel grow a lot from here if she does continue to post on this. But anyway, let's check out this video and see, what's up with Suze today. What are the biggest mistakes she thinks women make? Why she doesn't order coffee? And I will give my completely honest, straightforward opinion as somebody who has been coaching women on their finances for roughly 20 years now, and we'll see where we align and where we don't. So let's tap the like button and dive in.
Last week, I interviewed financial powerhouse Suze Orman at the Forbes Know Your Value 3050 Summit in Abu Dhabi. Suze captivated the audience, over 400 women from 46 different countries, detailing her journey of making just $400 a month to becoming one of the world's most influential personal finance experts. She also shared her best advice for women wanting to secure a brighter financial future. After our onstage interview, Suze and I sat down to talk about the state of the U.S. economy and the financial worries that keep her up at night. Also, why she thinks I need to kick my daily Starbucks habit. Take a look.
Daily Starbucks habit. Yeah, so many people just like pounce on the coffee thing, like Graham Stephan, another really successful, personal finance YouTuber. He's all about, don't buy the lattes, just do the 20-cent iced coffee. And
the 20-cent iced coffee.
All these people seem to think that like just not buying coffee or just brewing coffee at home instead of buying it at Starbucks or Peet's, like that's what's going to make you rich. And there's some truth to that. Like I used to work at Starbucks back in the day when I was studying for my real estate license. And even after I no longer worked there, I still would enjoy getting a latte. And there was a time where I used to get a latte, pretty much every day. And then I added up how much I was spending and I was like, oh my God, with how much I'm spending on lattes, I could take a trip to Europe every single year. And for me, I would much rather take that trip than have lattes every day. And so that's when I stopped the latte habit. And here's what I will say though. I have a latte now and then. I would say maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and when I do it, I really enjoy it and I savor it and it's delightful. And so I think there's a part of this deciding like, what are the things that you put your money into where you're just like unconsciously spending and it's not really bringing you any joy and fulfillment, in which case like maybe don't spend the money on that. And when is it something that like brings you a lot of joy and fulfillment for the money? And so I'm not going to say don't ever have a latte. I'm going to say if you're going to have a latte, savor it. Okay, let's see where we go from here.
Suze Orman, thank you so much for being with us. Let's get right to it. At the beginning of the year, were you concerned about the economy, a financial pandemic, so to speak? And Are you now?
I'm always concerned about those, Mika, that don't have money. Because inflation, even though they say it's kind of come down, people still don't have the money they need to afford the things that they need. Not their wants, but just their needs. So the rents people are paying, the prices they're paying for real estate, their homes, that concerns me. But overall, and I don't know how this has happened, it seems like we're doing all right.
Right.
It seems unemployment's all right. The markets are over the top great. And it's kind of settled in. So we'll just have to see the moves they make and how it goes.
So this is something interesting that she pointed out, because there's like the national inflation numbers. And obviously we're talking about the United States here, even though she's speaking in Abu Dhabi for some reason. But anyway, aside from that, there's something to be said for calculating your personal rate of inflation. And if you do it, fair warning, it might depress you, okay? Because there's like the overall inflation rate, the government will say, it's 2% or 3% or 4% or 7% or whatever it is. Now that includes like all spending, right? But if you want to calculate your personal rate of inflation, look at what you used to pay for milk and what you pay for milk now. Look at what you used to pay for eggs and what you pay for eggs now. Look at what you used to pay for gas and what you pay for gas now. Look at what you used to, if you're like me and you used to use like the pay phones, like what you put into a pay phone versus what you do now. I don't know if anybody does that anymore. But I remember, being able to like put certain coins into the telephone to make a call and then needing more and more coins. And I was like, oh, this is inflation. Like I started to get it at an early age, kind of showing my age now. But anyway, like look at the things that you spend money on and how it's increased over time. And what you will probably find if you do some number crunching is that your personal rate of inflation, what it actually costs to pay for your lifestyle, even like what Susie said, needs, not wants, but like, food, shelter, utilities, like basic survival stuff, it's probably a lot higher than the official government inflation rate. And just as an aside, this is why I'm such a stand for people investing, because you can't save money or hoard money to actually like create wealth, because inflation is always eating away at the value of your money. So you can't just like save or accumulate your way there. You have to invest, even if it's just to offset inflation, because the value of your dollars or euros or yen is decreasing. And it's hard to see, because it's like, okay, I had $100 today and I have $100 tomorrow, I have the same $100. But if you actually look at a price chart, you can see the value of the dollar going up and down compared to a blend of the other world currencies. And it's pretty mind-blowing. So even though you might have $100 yesterday and that's the same $100 today, the value of that, what it'll buy, what it'll do for you, is constantly in flux. And I think it's hard for people to wrap their minds around it. You've heard the phrase like safe as money in the bank, right? Is money in the bank safe? Not necessarily. I know a lot of people who have money in, fintech companies that they thought was FDIC insured. But even if like the banks don't fail and the bank itself is fine, money that's just sitting there in the bank, you're still losing that value to inflation. So in a way, having money in the bank's like the most risky thing you could do. I'm not saying don't have any money in the bank. It's great to have some cash reserves, but you want to have enough to like cover life's unexpected things, to like create flow in your life. But then beyond that, at some point you really do need to invest. Otherwise, inflation's gonna eat you all up. Here's another thing. Okay, just gotta say this because this is a sneaky place that inflation hides. Sometimes it's not even in the price of the thing, but the price stays the same, but you're getting less. So if you look at a jar of mayonnaise that used to have like 12 ounces in it, and now it has 10 ounces. That's inflation. So when you're getting less for the same amount of money, that's kind of like the same deal. So I don't want to depress you, but I also want to be real, because if you think that your personal rate of inflation is one thing and you think you're on track for retirement, and then you discover it's a much different thing, all of a sudden, boom, now you're having to work when you're 80 when you don't want to. And I would rather just shine the light of truth on that now while you can do something about it and prepare for it.
Goes.
I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but leading indicators look good.
Yes.
But it is expensive at the grocery store, and it is hard to get a home. So it's kind of like, it's
so now
schizophrenic.
But you're talking about the overall economy,
Yeah.
the GDP, the
Right.
all of that,
Yes.
versus people's individual economy. On an individual level, I think people are not doing okay.
Okay, I love that she said that. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody other than me talk about somebody's personal economy. And this is something that I've seen over, I think I became really aware of this back in 2008 when I was, losing my $6 million real estate empire in the global financial crisis, losing my own home to foreclosure, going bankrupt. Like, it was crazy. And yet there were other people who were having their best year in business ever, who were just rocking it. And I'm like, this is so interesting, because what I saw was that everybody has their own personal economy, and that may or may not have anything to do with the economy at large. So I decided at that point that I was going to dedicate my life to supporting people to create their own individual economy of abundance. And then eventually we would hit a tipping point where that would shift the economy of the community, the nation, and ultimately the world. And so that still completely excites me. So I think that anytime, and right now especially, like, focus on creating your own economy of abundance, because there's always going to be socioeconomic factors that are outside, beyond your control. And yet you can personally thrive with any economy with the right focus and the right financial education. But I agree with Susie. And I think this is part of the problem, is when you hear, one political party saying, oh, the economy is great, but here I can't afford my house and my bills. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not great. And I think that that's part of why we've seen the political swings that we have, right? Because until you're seeing it show up in your personal life, it's hard to be like, okay, well, the GDP is good, like freaking great. What's the GDP done for me lately? I need to pay my electric bill and it's like doubled. So I think that this speaks to something really important that you need to be aware of, and look at where you do have control within your own personal economy and creating a personal economy of abundance. That's big. That's like why I do what I do, like why we have this YouTube channel, why we have this company. And if you want to learn more about creating your own economy of abundance, you might want to check out Financial Freedom 101, which is my signature online 3-day event. You can go to financialfreedom101online.com for all the details, and with the link in the description. And in that link, you can actually get a full scholarship. So if you can put a little bit of time into getting your money systems dialed in, definitely something I would recommend checking out.
I do not. Over 50% of the people in the United States don't have $400 for an emergency savings account. Or if their car breaks down, so they have to go and put it on a credit card and pay the minimum payment due, and then the cycle of debt begins. But when you look at the overall, which I'm not sure means a lot.
That's right. Like, if you're looking at the overall and individual people are struggling, then it doesn't mean a lot. Like, it's nice, but yeah, it's got to be that personal economy. And I agree. These stats about, not being able to save, not being able to cover emergencies, like it's legit, right? And in fact, I saw a study by Bloomberg that 97% of people in the United States who are approaching retirement age don't have enough money or aren't on track to have enough money to retire and actually support the lifestyle they want, which means they're going to have to move in with their adult children. They're going to have to move somewhere else in the world, cheaper cost of living. They're going to have to keep working. Like it's a really, really, really big problem, and that's why we do what they do. I'm also really happy to hear her say that's where the cycle of debt begins, is when you can't manage those emergencies. And so you put it on a credit card. Like, I remember when my cat got injured and she needed to have surgery, to save her life. And it was like, she might not even survive, but I was going to have that $4,000 vet bill regardless. And I didn't have the money, and I put it on the credit card because I was like, I will never forgive myself if I don't do everything I can to save my cat's life. And the reason that I like that she says this is because I hear so many personal finance experts and gurus and YouTubers really like ragging on people about their spending habits. Like, don't go shopping, don't buy the latte, blah, blah, blah. But I think like a lot of what creates the debt in many cases isn't just overspending and YOLO and let me just go put a fancy vacation on my credit card. I mean, there might be some of that, but I think a lot of it is, sudden job loss or changes in your business or health. I believe that medical bills are the number one cause of bankruptcy, if I remember that right. So I get really irritated when I hear other people in the personal finance space shaming people for their spending habits, when a lot of times, like, I don't think that's what it is, and so I appreciate her perspective here.
It looks pretty good, but when you look at people's individual situation, in my opinion, they're still struggling.
So cost of housing and this individual struggle that you're noting, is that the economic, financial concerns that keep you up at night, or is there something looming that we need to worry about?
I don't have anything looming,
okay,
in terms of finance.
Mm-hmm.
I think the interviewer's question is there anything we should be worried about? Like, okay, I don't think that worry is helpful in any situation. I think there are things that's worth it to be aware of, like your personal rate of inflation, like we talked about, like creating your own economy. But I just think that's a really funny question. Is there anything we should be worried about? Like, let's find more things to worry about. I don't think that that's a healthy money mindset to be in.
Keeps me up at night are the wars. What's happening in Israel and with Gaza and Ukraine and Russia. We are now a global economy. We're no longer where it's just America and it's this and it's that. Everything is imported, exported, manufactured there, imported here, whatever it may be. So when you break down and all of a sudden money starts to be focused on war and combating one another, it affects everything in the economy.
Do your worries actually?
I mean, I'm on board with that. I don't really have anything to add. I do think that we are very interconnected at this point, and I see, some policies in the U.S. government right now. It's almost, it looks like they're trying to like take us away from that. And I don't think being interconnected or interdependent, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But I can see what she's talking about. Because we are so connected now, everybody's affected, and I would even say like on a spiritual level, if you believe that we're all connected, which I do, I believe that we're all part of like universal consciousness. So whether you call that God, the universe, the 0 point field, like if you have some belief that we are all connected to a larger thing and we're all part of some larger thing, then you can't have win-lose because we're all together, we're all the same, right? So if somebody's going through war, that's going to impact everybody negatively on that spiritual level, because I can't win unless you win because we're the same, So spiritual tangent there. The other thing that this makes me think of is a lot of times when I'm talking about investment strategies, sometimes I'll use certain indexes or funds that are specific to the United States as examples, and people will be like, well, does that apply because I'm in the UK or I'm in Canada or I'm in France? And because we are so interconnected, I think it makes sense to pay attention to what's going on in different parts of the world and different parts of the market. So just figured I'd put that out there since that came to mind.
Pour into your advice. Do you think people should be watching and listening what's happening with these wars and, thinking on it more? Because a lot of people are really busy, and that's like what Washington worries about. Is it something they should worry about too? And
I think they should absolutely be knowledgeable about it. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're just not worried because you don't want to know about it, Now you're asking for trouble on a personal level as well.
So I like what she's saying, like, be aware of it. Don't worry about it, because what the hell use is worrying going to do? That's not going to help the people. It's not going to help you. But being aware of what's going on and how it impacts the world, sure.
Biggest financial mistakes you see women in their 50s and 60s and beyond making?
Not really knowing where their money is, especially the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. You know, I have a podcast, Women and Money, and everyone's smart enough to listen. And it's really geared towards women who are 60, 70, and 80 years of age.
Because we have arrived.
We have arrived, but sometimes...
You know, I really like that she mentioned this, like the 50, 60, 70, because when I read her books back in the day, like 20 years ago, and she's talking about dollar cost averaging into the stock market for 40 years, I was like, okay, great. Like, that's awesome if I have 40 years. So like if I'm reading that in my 20s and I'm willing to wait till I'm in my 60s, sure. It's not like that strategy doesn't work. But what if you're getting started later in life? Like, what if you are 50, 60, 70, 80 and up? Or what if you were doing all the right things and something wiped you out? A divorce, a bankruptcy, a health thing. You know, I lost my real estate empire in the global financial crisis and had to go bankrupt and totally rebuild, right? So it's like, what if you tried, you know, and something happened, you got scammed or embezzled from, or you got cancer, or like something happened that wiped you out financially, and now you have to start over again and you don't have 40 years. So that was something that always like really frustrated me about Suze Orman's financial advice. And I would be curious to see what she says now, speaking to more seasoned women.
Sometimes we arrive in a different way than we thought. We thought we were in the perfect relationship, and now we're not in relationship. We thought our perfect partner was going to live forever, and then they died. And here we are, and we don't know what to do with what we have. We don't know what to do with that which we needed, but we don't have. And that's all because in our 50s, we didn't want to get involved with our money.
Not just in your 50s, but like anytime didn't want to get involved with the money. And I don't even know. So like, here's what I see. I see a lot of women give their power and their money away to some guy, whether it's their partner, whether it's a financial advisor. They're like, I don't understand this. Let me get support. And something that women are, I think, really, really good at, and I think this is really smart, is if you don't really understand something, or there's an area that you're not an expert in, we're good at like pulling in resources, right? So let's pull in somebody to help me with that. Let me hire a financial advisor to handle my investments for me. Like, that sounds like a good idea. But what happens is that there's a difference between delegating and abdicating responsibility, right? And the abdicating responsibility part, that's the real problem. That's the real red flag. So when a woman says, oh, my partner handles that, or I've got a guy or whatever, I'm like, like, that is really scary. That's really scary. I mean, women have their partners die and they find out that their husband like gambled all their savings away. I mean, I've had multiple clients be like, before working with me, were scammed out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I know people who their financial advisor stole their life savings. It's like crazy. And I think that women in particular, we receive so many messages our whole lives about like, oh, you know, math is hard, or investing is hard, or, oh, no, sweetie, you know, your husband will take care of that. Or there's just like all these weird messages growing up that I think a lot of women feel like money and investing, it's going to be really complicated, or it's beyond them, or they don't have the time. And what the Wall Street investment bros don't want you to know is it's actually pretty easy. It's actually pretty easy. A little financial education goes a long way. But of course, if you do that, then they're not able to like collect their fees off of you. So it doesn't really behoove them to empower the women. So that's just like kind of what I've seen. Curious to hear more about what Suze says.
want to take a realistic approach to, oh, of course we're going to get older. Of course there's going to come a day that we retire. We'll always be able to work for money, so I don't have to save it. I don't have to think about it. I'll still take care of my kids. But women still give more to others than we give to ourselves.
I do see that in a lot of ways. And there is this thought that like, oh, well, I love what I do. You know, I'll just keep working. But what if you can't, you know, and no one wants to think about that. Like my grandma, wonderful, wonderful person, you know, she had her own business. She had a little gem shop, and she was just like minding her own business, walking across the street one day, and boom, an SUV hit her. And then she's in the ICU at John Muir Hospital fighting for her life. I visited her every single day for the month or so that she was in the ICU. And fortunately, she did recover, you know, for a while, but she was never the same. She couldn't run her business. So it's like, if something happens, like, how are you gonna make money? I just think that that's a super risky proposition. Even if, you know, like you're like me and you've created a passion business and you love what you do, I don't think it's smart for that to be the only plan. You want to have other streams of passive income that can support you, right? And I understand that, you know, not wanting to believe that anything could ever happen to you, but it could, you know. And another thing that could happen to you is you could live a long, healthy life and need money for it. So it's like you want to kind of balance enjoying your life now while also planning for the future, and then, you know, you got all your bases covered.
And that is a really big mistake.
That. You recently told the Wall Street Journal that you believe dining out is a waste of money, and that you would drop dead before you bought yourself a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I would drop dead before I bought myself a coffee. Now that's good. That's good marketing. That is drama. I would drop, like, I don't know how much money she has. Presumably a lot, you know, but like I would rather die than spend $5 on a latte. Really? Like, first of all, I don't believe her, but it's very, you know, it's very provocative to say that. So, you know, that's a lot of fun. And she thinks eating out is a waste of money. I mean, the thing is, like, eating out, it is like 10 to 20 times more expensive than just cooking at home. So I get it. And for some people, they get so much satisfaction from that. Like, it's just a real, you know, they just love it. Like I really don't have to eat out hardly ever. You know, I'd prefer to eat at home. It's like I have control over what I'm eating. I know it's healthy. I know what's in it. It's good. I totally like to go out sometimes, but it's not a big thing. For my husband, it's a big thing. Like it's a really big part of his life that he really enjoys. And, you know, he's able to balance saving and investing for the future with spending some of that money in the moment on things that he really enjoys. So I don't think it's necessarily bad. I think it comes back to conscious spending and conscious investing. When you look at a healthy relationship with money, you want to be able to save and invest for the future. You want to be able to cover your bills, and you want to enjoy some, and you want to give some away. So these are all part of a healthy relationship with money. And so just because Suze Orman doesn't place a high value on eating out or having a latte doesn't mean that somebody else might not get so much pleasure and enjoyment from that it is worth the money for them. And if they're, again, like covering all their bases, like, why not? You know, I would never spend $100,000 on a car. Like, to me, a car, it's a way of getting from one place to another. You know, I want it to start reliably. I want it to get me there safely and hold my water, you know, and like, I don't require anything super special from a car. Other than I just want it to work. I just want it to work. But my husband, you know, he invested, you know, or spent or blew, depending on your, you know, mindset, $100,000 on his Porsche, you know, GT4, which I did a whole other YouTube video about that. So we'll link it there on like my reaction to my husband buying a $100,000 car. So for me, like, not going to happen ever. would I rather die than spend $100,000 a car? No. I mean, if you were like, Penelope, you have to buy a GT4 or die, I'd be like, I'll buy the GT4, right? And then like give it to Paul. But for him, you know, he gets so much enjoyment out of that, and it's worth it. And he's able to do that without sabotaging his ability to retire in the future. So it's all nuanced, you know, it's all nuanced. But let's see where she goes with this.
Yes.
I love my Starbucks.
Why can't you make that at home and just bring it?
I know. It tastes different, Susie.
Here's what would happen when I would go on the Oprah show.
Okay.
So she asked a question very similar. What are people wasting their money on? I said, Starbucks.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
It's like $5 and $8 now.
But back then it was $3,
Well, it was still a
$3.75.
lot,
All
yeah.
right. And I said, Oprah, do you know if you were 25 years of age and you bought a Starbucks every single day, and rather than doing that every day, you put $100 a month into a Roth IRA, a retirement account, and you did that every single day until you were, you know, you're 25, so let's say till 65. You averaged 12% on your money over all those years. Do you know, at the age of 65, you'd have $1 million?
Oh my God.
So all of
It is pretty amazing. So in that, I agree with her, because the power of compound interest, it is mind-blowing. It's difficult to wrap your mind around how your money can grow and compound over time, for sure. And so what I would say is, like, it's not so much about the latte, it's about making decisions that are based on your values, right? So you're like, would I rather have a latte every day, or would I rather have, you know, whatever she said, $1.2 million when I'm 65, or maybe split the difference. Maybe have a latte every other day and have $700,000 or whatever. But here's the thing she didn't mention, okay? Why does everybody always go for the lattes? What about learning to save more money on taxes? You know, let's talk about like 80-20 rule, okay? Pareto's principle. Is it Pareto? No. Is it Pareto's principle? Hang on, I'm getting my principles mixed up. Okay, that's Pareto's principle, and then there's Parkinson's law. Okay, so 80-20 rule, Pareto's principle, right? 20% of your effort giving you 80% of your results, 80% of your results coming from 20% of the inputs. So one of the biggest expenses for most people is taxes, okay? Why don't we talk more about tax reduction strategies instead of lattes? Because sure, like if you're spending, you know, $5 a day, blah, 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 it ends up being a couple thousand a year. But like, could you save that in taxes, still have the $1.2 million and enjoy your latte also? I think you could. I think you could. So I think that yes, these little latte factors can totally add up, and it's worth looking at that, and it's worth shining the light of truth and consciousness on it. But at the end of the day, like, why are we always like harping on people about the things that bring them fulfillment and pleasure versus things that don't? So like, you could still accomplish those same goals without reducing your lifestyle at all. I mean, at all, by tax reduction strategies, saving on your insurance, saving on your electric bill, like doing smart strategic things to have money that's just getting wasted on things that don't bring you any joy and fulfillment, and have that go into building assets instead. Now, could you also then put some of the latte money there? Sure. But it's like, why do they always start with the coffee when that's this small thing compared to something like taxes or housing or groceries? Those are more like the top three, right?
all of you are peeing $1 million down the drain. I've never bought a Starbucks in my life.
I do think it's interesting to look at it like on a case-by-case basis and think about the future value of something. So let's say you want to have a latte or you want to have popcorn at the movies. Like, you can pull out a free compound interest calculator on your phone and you can put in like how many years you are till retirement, what kind of an ROI you think you can get on your investments. And you're like, okay, if I, let's say popcorn's $10, right? Let's say I don't get the popcorn and I invest the $10 instead, how much would that be? Oh, that would be like $83. Okay, well, I don't want to spend $83 of my future self's money on this popcorn. Let me just skip it for now. But here's the thing. If you're going to do that, make sure you actually invest the $10, or make sure you actually invest the, $5 latte. Like, make sure you actually transfer and invest the money, because if you just don't, there's a difference between saving money and just spending it on something else, right? So if you saved it, but actually just got spent on something else, then you're not getting that benefit. You're not getting the $1.2 million for never drinking coffee. So I have a note on my phone that's called transfers. And so anytime I do something like that, like I save money on something, or I decide not to buy something because I'd rather invest, I make a note how much that was, and I go home and I transfer that money into my investment account. That's gold. That's gold. I hope you'll take that on as a prosperity practice, because yes, you can save money on these things, but if you don't actually transfer it into investments, then it's just going to get spent on something else.
Even the Morning Joe blend?
Not even the Morning Joe blend.
Okay, fine. Damn it was my guilty pleasure. Suze, thank you so much.
Anytime,
I appreciate
Mika.
it.
I think that's interesting that she said guilty pleasure, because so there's a part of her that feels guilty about it. I think that if you choose to spend that money on a latte or a popcorn or a new pair of shoes or whatever, if you decide to consciously do that, lose the guilt and just lean into the pleasure. Like I said, if I have a latte, oh my God, it is orgasmic. I am enjoying that latte way too much, and then I think that when you allow yourself to fully enjoy some of these things, some of the finer things in life, like a fancy coffee, I think that gets part of your subconscious on board with your wealth building journey, because conscious spending is part of a healthy relationship with money. And there's going to be a part of you that's the frugal part that always wants to save and save and save. And that's a wonderful part and we love it. And there's also a part of you that wants to have fun and be spontaneous and enjoy the things that this beautiful world has to offer in the short time that we're here, and you want to nurture both of those parts and then get them both on board, rowing the boat in the same direction to help you build wealth and financial freedom. And so I do think that allowing yourself those pleasures and fully leaning into that pleasure can actually help you build wealth faster.
I do love my Starbucks. You need to check out her podcast, Women in Money. It's incredible, and you can read more about Suze's appearance at the 3050 Summit at knowyourvalue.com and Forbes.com. And this week's Morning Mika is all about 3050, featuring some of the most important stories and incredible advice from powerful women across the globe who joined us in Abu Dhabi. Huma Abedin joins me to break down all the highlights from the summit in this week's episode of Morning Mika, available on Peacock.
Okay, that's it for the actual interview part. But this was a really fun video. It was good to see Suze. And I'm curious to hear more about how she works with people in their 50s, 60s, 70s and up. And I think my biggest takeaway from this video is that little things can make a big difference over time. And so doing those little transfers, saving money here and there can make a huge difference in your wealth. And at the end of the day, bringing consciousness to what you're doing. So if you found this helpful and interesting, please tap the like button. If there's any other videos you want me to react to, let me know. Thanks so much for watching, and happy saving and investing.